right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another stream of Wuthering Heights. I'm very excited to continue on with this book that is becoming a bit of a train wreck. I feel like all the characters are out of control, and I think it's only going to get worse as we continue on. So, last time we were reading, we are listening to Mrs. Dean, the housekeeper, also referred to as Nellie, talk about the history of Wuthering Heights, specifically regarding Heathcliff. And so what happened was is Heathcliff left because he found out Kathy, this girl he really liked from childhood, was like, I can't be, married to this guy. He's going to be below me and it's just not worth my time. And he overheard that and was like super upset and offended. So he left. And then he comes back 3 years later, finds out that Kathy's married, and he's kind of a little disappointed that she wouldn't wait for him. But granted, he just took off, and that's what it was. So he shows up 3 years later. She's married. He goes to her house, and he's like, I'm back. And she's super excited, super giddy, thinks he's the best thing in the world. And she acts like this in front of her husband. And she even brings Heathcliff in, and she's like, oh, yes, you guys are going to be the greatest friends. It's the best thing ever. Oh, my God, my life is complete. Kind of like how someone would act if that Heathcliff were, like, her husband himself. So it's interesting because she's like, oh, but Heathcliff is my friend, and he's all this and that. But in reality, it's like, well, no, Heathcliff is way more than a friend. And her husband, is just trying to be a gentleman and just kind of accept the fact that, this guy's always going to be showing up to his house and this and that. And then Kathy gets into it with her sister-in-law because her sister-in-law is like, ooh, I really like Heathcliff. And her name is Isabella. So Isabella is like, ooh, I am all about Heathcliff. Bad boy, love him. He's amazing. And so Kathy makes fun of her. And they have this huge spat, this huge fight between each other. And they don't talk for like a whole day and a half. Then Heathcliff shows up and Kathy's like, ooh, Isabella, let's tell Heathcliff about your secret desires for him. And that's where everything goes crazy and just kind of explodes. So the housekeeper's mad about the whole situation. And then she goes and tells the husband, this guy's here again, this Heathcliff dude. And they're really getting into it. And then the husband comes in and he's like, Heathcliff, you need to leave. You are causing a problem for my family. I don't like the fact that, my sister's really into you. You are a horrible person. You're not great. And I don't like the relationship you have with my wife, my wife. And so eventually Heathcliff leaves and, he's like all scorned and upset. And the husband is like, oh, well, I should go console my wife, Kathy, who I don't even know why he's being nice to her because she's not great. I hate Catherine. I hate her with every bit of my being. I hate her. Can't stand her. And so she's like, oh, poor me. Oh, woe is me. And that's basically where we kind of left off. So now it's like a new day, and we're going to be keeping on listening to this recount from Nellie, Mrs. Dean, to understand Wuthering Heights and Heathcliff and how Heathcliff got Wuthering Heights. And it's going to be from her perspective. So this is stuff that's happened in the past, and she's relaying this to us as we are a guy named Mr. Lockwood who lives on the land that Heathcliff owns. So, yeah, this story's a little all over the place, but it's a hot mess, and we're going to finish it and see it through. So anyway, let's begin the reading of Wuthering Heights. So I just wanted to do the little summary for everybody if somebody is new here and kind of wanted a little synopsis of what's going on. That's kind of the gist of it. All right, here we go. Chapter 12. While Miss Linton moped about the park and garden, always silent and almost always in tears, and her brother shut himself up among books that he never opened, wearying, I guessed, with a continual vague expectation that Catherine, repenting her conduct, would come of her own accord to ask pardon, and seek a reconciliation, and she fasted pertinaciously. under the choke for her absence, and even pride alone held him from running to cast himself at her feet. I went about my household duties, convinced that the Grange had been but one sensible soul in its walls, and that belonged in my body. I wasted no condolences on Miss, or any expostulations on my mistress, nor did I pay attention to the sighs of my master, who yearned to hear his lady's name, since he might not hear her voice any more. I determined that they should come about as they pleased for me, and though it was tiresome and a slow process, I began to rejoice at the length and a faint dawn of its progress, as I thought at first. Mrs. Linton on the third day unbarred her door, and having finished the water in her pitcher and decanter, desired a renewed supply, and a basin of gruel, for she believed she was dying. That I set down as a speech meant for Edgar's ears. I believed no such thing, so I kept it to myself, and I brought her some tea and dry toast. She ate and drank eagerly, and sank back on her pillow again, clenching her hands and groaning. "Oh, I will die," she exclaimed, "since no one cares about anything about me. Oh, I wish I had not taken that." And then a good while after that I heard her murmur, "No, I'll not die. He'd be too glad. He does not love me at all. He would never miss me." "Did you want anything, ma'am?" I inquired, still preserving my external composure, in spite of her ghastly countenance and strange, exaggerated manner. "What is that pathetic being doing?" she demanded, pushing the thick and tangled locks from her wasted face. "Has he fallen into a lethargy, or is he dead?" "Neither," I replied. "If ye mean Mr. Linton, he's tolerably well, I think, though his studies do occupy him rather more than they ought. He is continually among his books, since there has no other society been to keep him." I should not have spoken, if I had so known her true condition, but I could not get rid of the notion that she acted a part of her disorder. "Among his books!" she cried, confounded. "And I am dying. I am on the brink of the grave. My God, does he know how I am altered?" continued she, staring at her reflection in a mirror hanging against the opposite wall. "Is that Catherine Linton? He imagines me in a pet, in play, perhaps. Cannot you inform him that this is a frightful earnest? Nellie, if it not be too late, as soon as I learn how he feels, I'll choose between these two, either to starve at once, that would be no punishment, unless he had a heart, or to recover and leave the country. Are you speaking the truth about him now? Take care. Is he actually so utterly indifferent for my life?" "Why, ma'am," I answered, "the master has no idea of your being deranged, and of course he does not fear that you will let yourself die of hunger." "You think not? Cannot you tell him I will?" she returned. "Persuade him. Speak of your own mind. Say you are certain I will." "No, ye forget, Mrs. Linton," I suggested, "that you have eaten some food with a relish this evening, and tomorrow you will be preserved in good effects." "If I were only sure it would kill him," she interrupted. "I'll kill myself directly. These awful nights. Oh, I've never closed my lids, and oh, I've been tormented. I've been haunted, Nellie. But I begin to fancy that you don't like me. How strange. I thought, though everybody hated and despised each other, they could not avoid loving me, and they have all turned to enemies in a few hours they have. I'm positive. The people are here. How dreary to meet death surrounded by cold faces. Isabella, terrified and repelled, afraid to enter the room. It would be so terrible to watch Catherine go, and Edgar standing solemnly to see it over, then offering prayers of thanks to God, or restoring peace to his house, and going back to his books. What in the name of all that feels has he to do with books, when I am dying?" She could not bear the notion which I had put into her head of Mr. Linton's philosophical resignation. Tossing about, she increased her feverish bewilderment to madness, and tore the pillow with her teeth. Then, raising herself up, all burning, desired that I would open the window for her. We were in the middle of winter. The wind blew strong from the northeast, and I objected. Both the expressions flitting over her face and the changes of her moods began to alarm me terribly, and brought to my recollection her former illness, and the doctor's injunction that she should not be crossed. A minute previously she was violent, now supported on one arm, and not noticing my refusal to obey her, she seemed to find childish diversion in pulling the feathers from the rents she had made, and ranging them around on the sheet according to their different species. Her mind had stayed to other associations. "That's a turkey's," she murmured to herself, "and this is a wild duck, and this is a pigeon's feather. Ah, they put pigeon's feathers in the pillows. No wonder I couldn't die. Let me take care to throw it to the floor when I lie down. And here is a poor cock's, and this, I should know it among 1,000. It's a lapwing's. Bonny bird, wheeling over our heads in the middle of the moor. It wanted to get to its nest, for the clouds had touched the swells, and felt rain coming. This feather was picked up from the heath. The bird was not shot. We saw its nest up in winter, full of little skeletons. Heathcliff set a trap over it, and the old ones dare not come. I made him promise he'd never shoot a lapwing after that. And he didn't. Yes, here are more. Did he shoot my lapwings, Nellie? Are they red, any of them? Let me look." "Give over with that baby work," I interrupted, dragging the pillow away and turning the holes towards the mattress, for she was removing its contents by handfuls. "Lie down and shut your eyes. You're wandering. There is a mess. The down is flying about like snow." I went here and there collecting it. "I see in you, Nellie," she continued dreamily, "an aged woman. You have gray hair and bent shoulders. This bed is the fairy cave under the Penistone Crag, and you are gathering elf bolts to hurt our heifers, pretending while I am near that they are only locks of wool. That's what you'll come to 50 years hence. I know you are not so now. I'm not wandering. You're mistaken, or else I should have believed you really were that withered hag, and I should think I was under Penistone Crag myself. I'm a conscious woman. It's night time, and there are candles on the table, making the black press shine like jet." "The black press? What is that?" I asked. "You are talking in your sleep." "It's against the wall, as it always is," she replied. "It does appear odd. I can see a face in it." "There is no press in the room. There never was," I said, resuming my seat and looping up the curtain that I might watch her. "You don't see that face?" she inquired, gazing earnestly at the mirror. And say what I could, I was incapable of making her to comprehend it to be her own face. So I rose and covered it with a shawl. "It's still behind there," she pursued anxiously. "And it's stirred. Who is that? Who is it? I hope it will not come out when you are gone. Oh, Nellie, the room is haunted. I'm afraid of being alone." I took her hand in mine and bid her to be composed, for a succession of shudders convulsed through her frame, and she would keep straining her gaze always towards the glass. "There is nobody here," I insisted. "It was yourself, Mrs. Linton. You know it a good while since." "Myself?" she gasped. "And the clock is striking 12? It's true, then. It's just dreadful." Her fingers clutched the clothes and gathered them over her eyes. I attempted to steal the door with an intention of calling her husband, but I was summoned back by a piercing shriek. The shawl had dropped from the frame. "What is the matter?" I cried. "Who is the coward now? Wake up. That is the glass, the mirror. Mrs. Linton, And you don't see yourself in it. And there I am, too, by your side. Trembling and bewildered, she held me fast, but the horror gradually passed from her countenance. Its paleness gave place to a glow of shame. Oh, dear, I thought I was at home, she sighed. I thought I was lying in my chamber at Wuthering Heights. Because I am weak, my brain got confused and I screamed unconsciously. Don't say anything, but stay with me. I dread sleeping. My dreams do appall me. A sound sleep will do you good, ma'am, I answered, and I hope this suffering will prevent you trying to starve yourself again. Oh, if I were but in my own bed in that old house, she went on bitterly, wringing her hands, and that wind sounding in the firs by the lattice. Do let me feel it. It comes straight down the moor. Do let me have one breath. To pacify her, I held the casement ajar for a few seconds. A cold blast rushed through. I closed it and returned to my post. She lay still now, her face bathed in tears. Exhaustion of body had entirely subdued her spirit. Our fiery Catherine was no better than a wailing child. How long is it since I've shut myself in here? She asked, suddenly reviving. It was Monday evening, I replied, and this is the Thursday night and rather Friday morning at present. What? Of the same week? She exclaimed. Only that brief time? Long enough to live on nothing but cold water and ill temper, observed I. Well, it seems a weary number of hours, she muttered doubtfully. It must be more. I remember being in the parlor after they had quarreled, and Edgar being cruelly provoked, and me running into this room desperate. As soon as ever I had barred the door, utter blackness overwhelmed me, and I fell on the floor. I couldn't explain to Edgar how certain I felt of having a fit or going raging mad. If he persisted in teasing me, I had no command of tongue or brain, and he did not guess my agony. Perhaps it barely left me sense to try to escape from him and his voice. Before I recovered sufficiently to see and hear, it began to be dawn, and Nellie, I'll tell you what I thought, and what has kept reoccurring till I feared for my reason. I thought as I lay there with my head against the table leg, and my eyes dimly discerning the gray square of the window, that I was enclosed in the oak-paneled bed at home, and my heart ached with some grief which was just waking. I could not recollect. I pondered and worried myself to discover what it could be, and most strangely, the whole last 7 years of my life drew a blank. I did not recall that they had been at all. I was a child, my father had just been buried, and my misery arose from the separation that Hindley had ordered between me and Heathcliff. I was laid alone for the first time, and rousing from a dismal doze after a night of weeping, I lifted my hand to push the panels aside. It struck the tabletop. I swept it along the carpet, and then memory burst in. My late anguish was swallowed in a paroxysm of despair. I cannot say why I felt so wildly wretched. It must have been just temporary derangement, for there is scarcely cause. But, supposing at 12 years old I had been wrenched from the heights and every early association, and my all in all, as Heathcliff was at that time, and been converted at a stroke to Mrs. Linton, the lady at Thrushcross Grange, and the wife of a stranger, an exile and outcast thenceforth from what had been my world. You may fancy a glimpse of the abyss where I were once grovelled. Shake your head as you will, Nellie. You have helped to unsettle me. You should have always spoken to Edgar. Indeed, you should, and compelled him to leave me quiet. Oh, I'm burning. I wish I were out of the doors. I wish I were a girl again, half savage and free, and laughing at injuries, not maddening under them. Why am I so changed? Why does my blood rush into a hell of a tumult, at just a few words. I'm sure I should be myself were I once amongst the heather and on those hills. Open the window again, wide. Fasten it open, quick! Why don't you move? Because I don't give your death of cold, I answered. You won't give me a chance of life, you mean, she said sullenly. However, I'm not helpless yet. I'll open it myself. And sliding from across the bed before I could hinder her, she crossed the room, walking very uncertainly, threw it back and bent out, careless of the frosty air that cut about her shoulders as keen as a knife. I entreated and finally attempted to force her to retire, but I soon found her delirious strength much surpassed mine. There was no moon, and everything beneath lay in misty darkness. Not a light gleamed from any house, far or near. All had been extinguished long ago, and those at Wuthering Heights were never visible. Still, she asserted that she caught their shining. Look, she cried eagerly. That's my room with the candle in it, and the tree swaying before it, and the other candle is in Joseph's garret. Oh, Joseph sits up late, doesn't he? He's waiting till I come home, and he may lock the gate. Well, he'll wait a while yet. It's just a rough journey, and a sad heart to travel it, and we must pass by Gimmerton Kirk to go on that journey. We've braved it as ghosts often together, and dared each other to stand among the graves and ask them to come. But, Heathcliff, if I dare you now, will you venture? If you do, I'll keep you. I'll not lie there by myself. They may bury me 12 feet deep and throw the church down over me, but I won't rest until you are with me. I never will. She paused and resumed with a strange smile. He's considering. He'd rather I'd come to him. Find a way, then, not through that kirkyard. Oh, you are so slow. Be content. You'll always follow me. Perceiving it vain to argue against her insanity, I was planning how I could reach something to wrap around her, without quitting my hold of herself, for I could not trust her alone by the gaping lattice, when, to my consternation, I heard the rattle of the door handle, and Mr. Linton entered. He had only then come from the library, and in passing through the lobby had noticed our talking, and been attracted by curiosity, or fear, to examine what it signified at that late hour. "Oh, sir," I cried, checking the exclamation risen to his hips, at the sight which met him, and the bleak atmosphere of the chamber. "My poor mistress is ill, and she quite masters me. I cannot manage her at all. Pray come and persuade her to bed. Forget ye anger, for she's hard to guide away, but her own." "Catherine ill?" he said, hastening to us. "Shut the window, Ellen. Catherine, why?" He was silent, and haggardness of Mrs. Linton's appearance smote him speechless, and he could only glance from her to me in horrified astonishment. "She's been fretting here," I continued, "and eating scarcely anything, and never complaining. She would admit none of us till this evening, and so we couldn't inform you of her state, as we were not aware of it ourselves. But it is nothing." I felt I uttered my explanations awkwardly. The master frowned. "It is nothing, is it, Ellen Dean?" he said sternly. "You shall account more clearly for keeping me ignorant of this." And he took his wife in his arms and looked at her with anguish. At first she gave him no glance of recognition. He was not invisible to her abstracted gaze. The delirium was not fixed. However, having weaned her eyes from contemplating the outer darkness, by degrees she centered her attention on him, and discovered who it was that held her. "Ah, you've come, you are Edgar Linton," she said with angry animation. "You are one of those things that are never ever found when least wanted, and when you are wanted, never. I suppose we shall have plenty of lamentations now. I see we shall, but we can't keep me from my narrow home out yonder, my resting place, where I'm bound before spring is over. There it is, not among the Lintons, mind, under the chapel roof, but in the open air with a headstone, and you may please yourself, whether you go to them or come to me." "Catherine, what have you done?" commenced the master. "Am I nothing to you any more? Do you love that wretch Heath?" "Hush!" cried Mrs. Linton. "Hush this moment. You mention that name again, and I will end the matter instantly by a spring from the window. What you touch at present you may have, but my soul will be on that hilltop before you lay hands on me again. I don't want you, Edgar. I'm past wanting you. Return to your books. I'm glad you possess a consolation, for all that you had in me is gone." "Her mind wanders, sir," I interposed. "She might have been talking nonsense the whole evening, but let her have quiet and proper attendance, and she'll rally. Hereafter, we must be cautious now, not to vex her." "I desire no further advice from you," answered Mr. Linton. "You knew your mistress's nature, and you encouraged me to harass her. And now, not to give me one hint of how she has been these 3 days. It was heartless. Months of sickness could not cause such a change." I began to defend myself, thinking it too bad to be blamed for another's wicked waywardness. "I knew Mrs. Linton's nature to be headstrong and domineering," cried I, "but I didn't know that you wished to foster her fierce temper. I didn't know that to humour her. I should wink at Mr. Heathcliff. I performed the duty with a faithful servant in telling you, and I have got a faithful servant's wages. Well, it will teach me to be careful next time. Next time you may gather intelligence for yourself." "The next time you bring a tale to me, you shall quit my service, Ellen Dean," he replied. "You rather I'd heard nothing about it, I suppose, then, Mr. Linton," I said. "Heathcliff has your permission to come a-courting to Miss, and to drop in at every opportunity to your absence, on purpose to poison the mistress against you." Confused as Catherine was, her wits were alert at applying our conversation. "Oh, Nellie has played traitor!" she exclaimed passionately. "Nellie is my hidden enemy, you witch! You so seek sell elf bolts to hurt us. Let me go, and I'll make her rue. I'll make her howl a recantation." A maniac's fury kindled under her brows. She struggled desperately to disengage herself from Linton's arms. I felt no inclination to tarry the event, and resolving to seek medical aid on my own responsibility, I quitted the chamber. In passing the garden to reach the road, at a place where a bridle hook is driven into the wall, I saw something white moved irregularly, evidently by another agent than the wind. Notwithstanding my hurry, I stayed to examine it, lest, ever after, I should have the conviction impressed on my imagination that it was a creature of another world. My surprise and perplexity were great to discover, by a touch more than vision, Miss Isabella's Springer, Fanny, suspended to a handkerchief, and nearly at its last gasp. I quickly released the animal, and lifted it into the garden. I had seen it follow its mistress upstairs when she went to bed, and wondered much how it could have gotten out there, and what a mischievous person had treated it so. While untying the knot around the hook, it seemed to me that I repeatedly caught the beat of a horse's feet galloping at some distance, but there was such a number of things to occupy my reflections that I hardly gave the circumstance a thought, though it was a strange sound in that place, at 2 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Kenneth was fortunately just issuing from his house to see a patient in the village, as I came up the street, and my account of Catherine Linton's malady induced him to accompany me back immediately. He was a plain, rough man, and he made no scruple to speak his doubts on her surviving this second attack, unless she were more submissive to his directions than she had shown herself before. "Nellie Dean," he said, "I can't help fancying that there's an extra cause for this. What has there been to do at the Grange? We've odd reports up here. A stout, hearty lass like Catherine does not fall ill for a trifle. and that sort of people should not either. It's hard work bringing them through fevers and such things. How did it begin? The master will inform you, I answered, but you are acquainted with the Earnshaws, violent dispositions, and Mrs. Linton caps them. I may say this, it commenced a quarrel. She was struck during a tempest of passion with a kind of fit. That's her account at least, for she flew off in the height of it and locked herself up. Afterwards she refused to eat, and now alternately raves and remains in a half-dream, knowing those about her, but having her mind filled with all sorts of strange ideas and illusions. Mr. Linton will be sorry, observed Kenneth interrogatingly. Sorry? He'll break his heart should anything happen, I replied. Don't alarm him more than necessary. Well, I told him to be aware, said my companion, and he must abide the consequences of neglecting my warning. Hasn't he been thick with Mr. Heathcliff lately? Heathcliff frequently visits at the Grange, answered I, though more on strength of mistress having known him when he was a boy, than because the master likes his company. At present he's discharged from his company, and it will not be allowed to be a call-in, owing it to some presumptuous aspirations after Miss Linton, which he manifested. I hardly think he'll be taken in again. And does Miss Linton turn a cold shoulder on him? Was the doctor's next question. I'm not in her confidence, returned I, reluctant to continue the subject. No, she's a sly one, he remarked, shaking his head. She keeps her own counsel, but she's a little fool. I have it from on good authority that last night she and Heathcliff were walking in the plantation at back of your house above 2 hours, and he pressed her not to go in again, but just mount his horse and ride away with him. My informant said she could only put him off by pledging her word of honor to be prepared on their next meeting after that. When it was to be, he didn't hear, but you urge Mr. Linton to look sharp. This news filled me with fresh fears. I outstripped Kenneth, and I ran most of the way back. The little dog was yelping in the garden yet. I spared a minute to open the gate for it, but instead of going to the house door, it coursed up and down, snuffing the grass, and would have escaped to the road had I not seized and conveyed it with me. On ascending to Isabella's room, my suspicions were confirmed. It was empty. Had I been a few hours earlier, Mrs. Linton's illness might have arrested her rash step. But what could be done now? There was a bare possibility of overtaking them if I pursued instantly. I could not pursue them, however, and I dare not rouse the family and fill the place with the confusion. Still, less unfold the business to my master, absorbed as he was in his present calamity, and having no heart to spare a second grief. I saw nothing for it but to hold my tongue, and suffer matters to take their course. And Kenneth being arrived, I went with a badly composed countenance to announce him. Catherine laid in a troubled sleep. Her husband had succeeded in soothing the access of frenzy. He now hung over her pillow, watching every shade and every change of her painfully expressive features. The doctor, on examining the case for himself, spoke hopefully to him of its having a favorable termination. If we could only preserve that she could have the best surroundings and constant tranquility. To me, he signified the threatening danger, and was so much so that it was because of death, and that there would be a permanent alienation of intellect. I did not close my eyes that night, nor did Mr. Linton. Indeed, we never went to bed, and the servants were up all night before the usual hour, moving through the house with stealthy tread and exchanging whispers as they encountered each other in the vocation. Everyone was active but Miss Isabella, and they began to remark how sound she slept. Her brother, too, asked if she had arisen, and seemed impatient for her presence, and hurt that she showed so little anxiety for her sister-in-law. I trembled lest he should send me to call her, but I was spared the pain of being the first to proclaim of her flight. One of the maids, a thoughtless girl who had been on an early errand to Gimmerton, came panting upstairs, open mouthed, and dashed into the chamber, crying, "Oh dear, oh dear! What mun have we next? Master, master, our young lady!" "Hold your nose!" I cried hastily, enraged at her clamorous manner. "Speak lower, Mary. What is the matter? What ails your young lady?" She's gone! She's gone! Yon Heathcliff's run off with her!" gasped the girl. "That is not true!" exclaimed Linton, overhearing, and rising in agitation. "It cannot be. How has the idea entered your head? Ellen Dean, go and seek her. It is incredible. It cannot be." As soon as he spoke, he took the servant to the door, and then repeated his demand to know her reasons for such an assertion. "Why, I met on the road a lad that fetches milk here," she stammered, "and he asked, whether we weren't in trouble at the Grange. I thought he meant for Mrs. Sickness, so I answered yes. Then he says they've got somebody who's gone after them, I guess. I stared, and he saw that I knew naught about it, and told how a gentleman and a lady had stopped to have a horse's shoe fastened at a blacksmith's shop 2 miles out of Gimmerton, not long after midnight, and how the blacksmith's lass had got up to spy who they were, and she knew them both directly, and she noticed that the man Heathcliff it was. She felt certain nobody could mistake him. Besides, put a sovereign in her father's hand for payment, and the lady had a cloak about her face, not having desired a sup of water while she drank." He raised his eyes and read the meaning of my blank aspect, and dropped them without giving an order or uttering a word. "We are to try any measures for overtaking and bringing her back?" I inquired. "How should we do?" "She went of her own accord," answered the master. "She had a right to go if she pleased. Trouble me no more about her. Hereafter she is only my sister in name, not because I disown her, but because she has disowned me." And that was all he said on the subject. He did not make a single inquiry further, nor mention her any way, except directing me to send what property she had in the house to her fresh home, wherever it was. All right. Chapter 13. For 2 months the fugitives remained absent. In those 2 months Mrs. Linton encountered and conquered the worst shock that was denominated a brain fever. No mother could have nursed an only child more devotedly than Edgar tended her. Day and night he was watching, and patiently enduring all annoyances and irritable nerves and shaken reason could inflict. And though Kenneth remarked that what he saved from the grave would only recompense his care by forming the source of constant future anxiety, in fact, that his health and strength were being sacrificed to preserve a mere ruin of humanity, and he knew no limits in gratitude and joy when Catherine's life was declared out of danger, and hour after hour he would sit beside her, tracing the gradual return to bodily health, and flattening his sanguine hopes with the illusion that her mind would settle back to its right balance also, and she would soon be entirely her former self. The first time she left her chamber was at the commencement of the following March. Mr. Linton had put on her pillow, and in the morning a handful of golden crocuses, her eye, long stranger to any gleam of pleasure, caught them in waking, and shone delighted at the gathered. "Oh, these are the earliest flowers at the Heights," she exclaimed. "They remind me of soft thaw winds and warm sunshine and nearly melted snow. Edgar, is there not a south wind? And is that not the snow almost gone?" "The snow is quite gone down there, darling," he replied, "and I only see 2 white spots on the whole range of the moors. The The sky is blue, and the larks are singing, and the becks and the brooks are all brim full. Catherine, last spring at this time I was longing to have you under this roof. Now I wish you were a mile or two up those hills. The air blows so sweetly. I feel that it would cure you. Oh, I shall never be there, but once more, said the invalid, and then you'll leave me, and I shall remain forever. Next spring you'll long again to have me under your roof, and you'll look back and think you were happy today. Linton lavished on her the kindest caresses and tried to cheer her by the fondest words, but vaguely regarding the flowers, she let the tears collect on her lashes, and they streamed down her cheeks unheedingly. We knew she was really better, and therefore decided that long confinement to a single place produced much of this despondency, and it might be partially removed by a chance of a scene. The master told me to light a fire in many weeks in the deserted parlor, and to set an easy chair in the sunshine by the window, and then he brought her down, and she sat along and enjoyed the genial heat, and as we expected, revived by the objects around her, which, though familiar, were far from the dreary associations investing her hated sick chamber. By evening she seemed greatly exhausted, yet no arguments could persuade her to return to that apartment, and I had to arrange the parlor sofa for her bed, till another room could be prepared. To obviate the fatigue of mounting and descending the stairs, we fitted this where you would lie at present, on the same floor with the parlor, and she was soon strong enough to move from one to the other, leaning on Edgar's arm. I thought to myself, she might recover, so waited on as she was, and there was a double cause to desire it, for on her existence depended that of another. We cherished the hope that in a little while Mr. Linton's heart would be gladdened, and his lands secured from a stranger's grip, but by the birth of an heir. I should mention that Isabella sent to her brother some 6 weeks from her departure a short note announcing her marriage with Heathcliff. It appeared dry and cold, but at the bottom it was dotted in a pencil with an obscure apology, and was entreated for a kind remembrance and reconciliation. And if her proceeding had offended him, asserting that she would not help it then, in being done, she had now no power to repeal it. Linton did not reply to this, I believe, and in a fortnight more I got a long letter which I considered odd, coming from the pen of a bride just out of honeymoon. I'll read it, for I keep it yet. Any relic of the dead is precious, if they were valued living. Dear Ellen, it begins. I came last night to Wuthering Heights, and heard for the first time that Catherine has been, and is yet, very ill. I must not write to her, I suppose, and my brother is either too angry or too distressed to answer what I send him. Still, I must write to somebody, and the only choice left to me is you. Inform Edgar that I'd give the world to see his face again, that my heart returned to Thrushcross Grange in 24 hours after I left it, and it is still there at this moment, full of warm feelings for him and Catherine. I can't follow it, though, as they need not expect me, and that they draw what conclusions they please, taking care, however, to not lay nothing at the door of my weak will or deficient affection. The remainder of this letter is for yourself alone. I want to ask you 2 questions. The first is, how did you contrive to preserve the common sympathies of human nature when you resided here? I cannot recognize any sentiment with which those around share with me. The second question I have great interest in. It is this. Is Mr. Heathcliff a man? If so, is he mad? And if not, is he a devil? I shan't tell my reasons for making this inquiry, but I beseech you to explain, if you can, what I have married. That is, when you call to see me. You must call, Ellen, very soon. Don't write, but come, and bring me something from Edgar. Now you shall hear how I have been received, in this new home, as I am led to imagine that the heights will be. It is to amuse myself that I dwell on such subjects of the lack of external comforts. They never occupy my thoughts, except at the moment, when I miss them. I should laugh and dance for joy. If I found their absence, it was a total of my miseries, and the rest was unnatural dream. The sun set behind the grange, and we turned on to the moors. By that I judged to be 6 o'clock, and my companion halted a half an hour later to inspect the park and the gardens and probably the place itself, as well as he could. So it was dark when we dismounted in the paved yard of the farmhouse, and your old fellow servant Joseph issued out to receive us by the light of a dip candle. He did it with a courtesy that redounded to his credit. His first act was to elevate his torch to a level with my face, squinting malignantly, projecting under his lip, and to turn away. When he took the 2 horses and led them into the stables, he reappeared for the purpose of locking the outer gate, as if we had lived in an ancient castle. Heathcliff stayed to speak to him, and I entered the kitchen, a dingy, untidy hole. I dare say to you, it would not change to know it, but it has changed since it was in your charge. By the fire stood a ruffianly child, strong in limb and dirty in garb, with a look of Catherine in his eyes and about his mouth. Ha, that was Edgar's legal nephew, I reflected. Mine in a manner. I must shake hands, and yes, I must kiss him. It is right to establish a good understanding at the beginning. Isabella resumes her letter. I approached, and attempting to take his chubby fist, said, "How do you do, my dear?" He replied in a jargon that I did not comprehend. "Shall you and I be friends, Hareton?" was my next essay at conversation. An oath and a threat to set Throttler on me if I did not frame off worded my perseverance. "Hey, Throttler, lad!" whispered the little wretch, rousing a half-bred bulldog from its lair in a corner. "Now wilt thou be gagging?" he asked authoritatively. Love for my life urged a compliance. I stepped over the threshold to wait till the others would join. Mr. Heathcliff was nowhere visible, and Joseph, whom I followed to the stables and requested to accompany me in, after staring and muttering to himself, screwed up his nose and replied, Did I have the question body ever out to like it this, ma'am? Minching and a munchin? Ha! I'll tell you what you say. I say, I wish you to come with me into the house, I cried, thinking him deaf, yet highly disgusted at his rudeness. Nor na me. I get something to do, he answered, and continued his work, moving his lantern jaws meanwhile and surveying my dress and countenance with a sovereign contempt. I walked around the yard and through a wicket to another door at which I took the liberty of knocking in hopes that some more civil servant might show himself. After a short suspense, it was opened by a tall, gaunt man without a neckerchief, and otherwise extremely slovenly. His features were lost in a mass of shaggy hair that hung on his shoulders, and his eyes, too, were like a ghostly Catherine's, with all their beauty annihilated. "What's your business here?" he demanded grimly. "Who are you?" "My name was Isabella Linton," I replied. "You've seen me before, sir. I'm lately married to Mr. Heathcliff, and he has brought me here, I suppose by your permission?" "He has come back, then?" asked the hermit, glaring like a hungry wolf. "Yes, we just came now," I said. "But he left me by the kitchen door, and when I had tried to go in, your little boy played sentinel over the place and frightened me off by the help of a bulldog." "It's well the hellish villain has kept his word," growled my future host, searching the darkness beyond me in expectation of discovering Heathcliff, and then he indulged in a soliloquy of execrations and threats of what he would have done had the fiend deceived him. I repented having tried the second entrance, and was almost inclined to slip away before he finished cursing. But ere I could execute that intention, he ordered me in and shut and refastened the door. There was a great fire, and that was all the light in the huge apartment, whose floor had grown a uniform gray, and the once brilliant pewter dishes which once used to attract my gaze when I was a girl partook of a similar obscurity created by tarnish and dust. I inquired whether I might call the maid and be conducted to a bedroom. Mr. Earnshaw vouched that no answer would come. He walked up and down with his hands in his pockets, apparently quite forgetting my presence, and his abstraction was evidently too deep, and his whole aspect was misanthropical, that I shrank from the disturbing him again. You'll not be compromised, Ellen, at my feeling particularly cheerless, seated in a worse than solitude than that in an inhospitable hearth, and remembering that 4 miles distant lay my delightful home, containing the only people I loved on earth, and there might as well be the Atlantic to part us, instead of those 4 miles. I could not overpass them. I questioned with myself, where must I turn for comfort? And mind you, don't tell Edgar or Catherine. Above every sorrow beside, this rose preeminent, in despair at finding nobody who could or would be my ally against Heathcliff. I had sought shelter at Wuthering Heights almost gladly, because I was secured by the arrangement from living alone with him. But he knew the people we were coming amongst, and he did not fear their intermeddling. I sat and thought a doleful time. The clock struck 8 and 9, and still my companion paced to and fro, his head bent on his breast, and perfectly silent, unless a groan or a bitter ejaculation forced itself out in intervals. I listened to detect a woman's voice in the house, and filled the interim with wild regrets and dismal anticipations, which at last spoke audibly in irrepressible sighing and weeping. I was not aware of how openly I grieved, till Earnshaw halted opposite in his measured walk, and gave me a stare of newly awakened surprise. Taking advantage of his recovered attention, I exclaimed, "I'm tired with my journey, and I do want to go to bed. Where is the maid-servant? Direct me to her, as she won't come to me." "We have none," he answered. "You must wait on yourself." "Well, where must I sleep then?" I sobbed. I was beyond regarding self-respect, weighed down by fatigue and wretchedness. "Joseph will show you Heathcliff's chamber," he said. "Open that door. He is in there," pointing. I was going to obey, but he suddenly arrested me, and added in a strange tone, "Be so good as to turn your lock and draw your bolt. Don't omit it." "Well," I said, "but why, Mr. Earnshaw?" I did not relish the notion of deliberately fastening myself in with Heathcliff. "Look here," he replied, pulling from his waistcoat a curiously constructed pistol, having a double-edged spring knife attached to the barrel. "That's a great tempter to a desperate man, is it not? I cannot resist going up with this every night and trying his door. If once I find it open, he's done for. I will do it invariably, even though the minute before I have been recalling 100 reasons that should make me refrain. It is some devil that urges me to thwart down my schemes by killing him. You must fight against that devil for love, as long as you may. Then the time comes. Shall all the angels in heaven shall save him?" I surveyed the weapon inquisitively. A hideous notion struck me. How powerful I should be in possessing such an instrument. I took it from his hand and touched the blade. He looked astonished at the expression on my face, assumed during a brief second. It was not horror, it was covetousness. He snatched the pistol back, jealously, shut the knife, and returned it to his concealment. "I don't care if you tell him," he said. "Put him on his guard, and watch for him. You know the terms we are on. I see. His danger does not shock you. What has Heathcliff done to you? I asked. In what way has he wronged you to warrant this appalling hatred? Wouldn't it be wiser to bid him quit the house? No, thundered Earnshaw. Should he offer to leave me, he's a dead man. Persuade him to attempt it, and you are a murderess. Am I to lose all without a chance of retrieval? Is Hareton to be a beggar? Oh, damnation! I will have it back, and he will give his gold too, and then his blood, and hell shall have his soul. It will be 10 times blacker than the guest that ever was before. You've acquainted me, Ellen, with your old master's habits. He is clearly on the verge of madness. He was so last night at last. I shuddered to be near him, the thought on the servant's ill-bred moroseness as comparatively agreeable. He now recommenced his moody walk, and I raised the latch and escaped into the kitchen. Joseph was bending over the fire, peering into a large pan that swung above it, and a wooden bowl of oatmeal stood on the settle by it. The contents of the pan began to boil, and he turned to plunge his hand into the bowl. I conjectured that this preparation was probably for our supper, and being hungry, I resolved it should be eatable so, and crying out sharply, I'll make the porridge, I removed the vessel out of his reach, and proceeded to take off my hat and riding habit. Mr. Earnshaw, I continued, directs me to wait on myself. Well, I will. I'm not going to act the lady among you for fear I should starve. Aye, goody lord, he muttered, sitting down and stroking his ribbed stockings from the knee to the ankle. If the truths be of fresh offerings, just when ye getting used to maisters, if ye want to have a mistress, to set over my head, it's like a time to be flitting. No, never did ye think to say, today would made the love of the Lord a place. But, that is a night at hand. This lamentation drew no notice from me. I went briskly to work, sighing to remember a period when it would have been all merry fun, but compelled speedily to drive it off for the remembrance of it. It racked me to recall past happiness, and the greater peril there was of conjuring up its apparition. The quicker the thimble ran around, and the faster the handfuls of the meal fell into the water. Joseph beheld my style of cookery with growing indignation. There, he ejaculated, Hareton, that wallops up the porridge, ta nyat. There'll be naught but big lumps as big as your maw, knave. There and again, to fling a bowl on you done. There, pale a glip off. Bang it to Marcy the bottom, isn't it? Don't have that. It was rather a rough mess, I do own, but poured into the basins 4 had been provided, and a gallon pitcher of new milk was brought from the dairy, which Hareton seized and commenced drinking and spilling from the expansive lip. I expostulated that the desire that he should have his in a mug, affirming that I could not taste the liquor treated so dirtily. The old cynic chose to be vastly offended at this nicety, assuring me repeatedly that the bairn was once a bit of good, as I, and every bit as wholesome, and wondering how I should fashion to be so conceited. Meanwhile, the infant ruffian continued sucking, and glowering up at me defiantly, and he slavered into the jug. I shall have my supper in another room, I said. Have you no place to call a parlor? Parlor? He echoed sneeringly. Parlor? Nay, we know a parlors. If ye donna like where your company be, they're the masters, and ye donna like the master, they say, and... Then I shall go upstairs, I answered. Show me a chamber. I put my basin on a tray and went myself to fetch some more milk. With great grumblings, the fellow rose and preceded me in the ascent. We mounted to the garrets. He opened a door, and now and then to look into the apartments as we passed. Here's her room, he said at last, flinging back a cranky board on its hinges. It's weel enough to ate a few porridge in. There's a peck of corn in the corner there, meeterly clane, and you're free to be mucking your grand silk clothes and spread your hanky over the top of that. The room was kind of a lumber hole smelling strong of malting grain, various sacks of which articles were piled around, leaving a wide bare space in the middle. Why, man, I exclaimed, facing him angrily, this is not a place to sleep in. I wish to see my bedroom. Bedroom? He repeated in a tone of mockery. You see to bedrooms, there's yon mine. He pointed to a second garret, only differing from the first in being more naked about the walls, and having a large, low, curtainless bed, with an indigo-colored quilt at one end. What do I want with yours? I retorted. I suppose Mr. Heathcliff does not have a lodge at the top of the house, does he? Oh, it's Master Heathcliff's you're wanting, cried he, as if making a new discovery. Couldn't ye said that at the onset? Ah, well then I mind you telling ye. Bate all this walk, and then it's just so you can see, and then alas, you locked up in your Navvy's Isles. Ah, you'll be hustling me any time. Well, you've a nice house, Joseph, I could not refrain from observing, and pleasant inmates, and I think the concentrated essence of all the madness in the world took up its abode in my brain the day I got linked my fate with theirs. However, that is not to be present purpose. There are rooms. For heaven's sake, be quick, and let me settle somewhere. He made no reply to this adjuration, only plodding doggedly down the wooden steps and halting before an apartment, which from that was of a superior quality of its furniture, I conjectured to be the best one. There was a carpet, a good one, but the pattern was obliterated by dust. A fireplace hung with cut paper dropping to pieces, a handsome oak bedstand with ample crimson curtains of rather expensive material and modern make, but they had evidently experienced rough usage. The valiances hung in festoons, wrenched from their rings, and the iron rod supporting them was bent in an arc on one side, causing the drapery to trail upon the floor. The chairs were so damaged, many of them severely, and deep indentations deformed the panels of the walls. I was endeavoring to gather resolution for entering and taking possession, when my fool of a guide announced, "This here's the master's." My supper by this time was cold, my appetite gone, and my patience exhausted. I insisted on being provided instantly with a place of refuge and means of repose. "Where the devil?" began the religious elder. "The Lord bless us, the Lord forgive ye. Well, whether the hell would ye hell ye gang? Ye merrysome worrysome now. Ye seen about a heartin', what a bit of a chafer. There's none other holdin' to this till ye hasten." I was so vexed that I flung my tray and its contents on the ground, and then seated myself at the stair's head, hid my face in my hands, and cried. "Ugh!" exclaimed Joseph. "Weel done, Miss Cathy, weel done, Miss Cathy. Haven't ye maester sold a tumbler over them broken pots? Oh, and then when we're here on the summit, we hear he all had to be. Good for it now, Madling. Ye deserve pining through this tough Christmas. Fling into precious gifts under God, ye footin'. Oh, ye flaysome rages. But where ye as mistaken is ye were the shoe for the spurred lang. Will Heathcliff bide such a bonny way, ye think? Oh, but nobody wish it. He must have caught ye that plisky. Oh, nobody wish he may, huh?" And so he went scolding to his den beneath, taking the candle with him, and I remained in the dark. The period of reflection succeeding this silly action compelled me to admit the necessity of smothering my pride and choking my wrath, and bestirring myself to remove its effects. An unexpected aid presently appeared in the shape of Throttler, the bulldog, whom I now recognized as a son of our old skulker. It had spent its whelphood at the Grange, and was given by my father to Mr. Hindley. I fancied it knew me. It pushed its nose between mine by way of salute, and then hastened to devour the porridge, while I groped from step to step, collecting the shattered earthenware and drying the splatters of milk from the banister where my pocket handkerchief. Our labors were scarcely over when I heard Earnshaw's tread in the passage. My assistant tucked in his tail and pressed to the wall. I stole into the nearest doorway. The dog's endeavor to avoid him was unsuccessful, as I guessed by a scuttle down the stairs and a prolonged piteous yelping. I had better luck. He passed on, entered his chamber, and shut the door. Directly after, Joseph came up with Hareton to put him to bed. I had found shelter in Hareton's room, and the old man, on seeing me, said, That's for both of ye, on your pride. Now, would ye say that ye hasn't? It's empty. Ye might have all ye uselin' in him, as ye Alice a Mark a third. Ye still a company. Gladly I did take advantage of this intimation, and the minute I flung myself into a chair by the fire, I nodded and slept. My slumber was deep and sweet, though over far too soon. Mr. Heathcliff woke me. He has just come in and demanded in his love-making, what was I doing there? I told him the cause of my staying up so late, that he had the key of our room in his pocket. The adjective our gave mortal offense. He swore it was not, nor ever should be mine, and but I'll not repeat his language, nor describe his habitual conduct. He is ingenious and unresting in seeking to gain my abhorrence. I sometimes wonder at him with an intensity that deadens my fear. Yet, I assure you, a tiger or a venomous serpent could not rouse terror in me equal to that which he awakens. He told me of Catherine's illness, and accused my brother of causing it, promising that I should be Edgar's proxy in suffering, till he could get a hold of him. I do hate him. I am wretched. I have been a fool. Beware of uttering one breath of this to anyone at the Grange. I shall expect you every day, Ellen. Don't disappoint me. Wow, what a change of events. I did not expect that to happen. This story gets worse and worse. These people are horrible. Like, they all got, like, some really bad conditions. My God. But anyway, if you enjoyed listening to me read more of Wuthering Heights, please feel free to like, subscribe, or follow. I do stream every day except Mondays, and I do stream at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're interested, you can continue on listening, and hopefully we'll get close to finishing the story in the coming streams. And I do also want to mention that I do stream some of my gaming as well. I do stream at 1 p.m. Eastern time pretty much every day as well. And yeah, so if you are interested, feel free to like, subscribe, or follow. I am on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you like that way you can end up getting notifications from me when I go live. So yeah, I hope to see you guys to the next stream, and remember to always stay safe and stay geeky.